What can I do for you?
Oh, a little song, a little dance, Batman's head on a lance. Tell me, what do you know about...
I don't know anything about Batman.
Really? Well, how about a little you and me?
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. We are rapidly heading towards a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday tomorrow, but we are still here delivering the news, and obviously we will be talking about all things Batman. We'll talk about 4 comics. Obviously, there are a couple of Batman-related titles like DC versus Vampires that we're not going to get into, but we'll talk about Detective Comics, Robin, Batman Reptilian, as well as Catwoman. Obviously, here with me is the man that knows Batman certainly better than I do, Josh McDonald from PopByCulture.com, as well as critic for BatmanNews.com. How you doing, Josh?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm a little under the weather. You might hear it a little bit. We're going to try to make sure you don't make me laugh. That's not going to happen. If I laugh, I'm going to start coughing. But yeah, I'm good. I feel fine. I just sound gross. But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I missed Saturday, which was a bummer, but back at it.
Absolutely. And you got big plans for Thanksgiving? You going to have some turkey?
Dude, I'm eating so much freaking food. Like, I'm going full on fat boy status. Just call me like Big Greasy. Like, I'm just going to throw down.
Big Greasy. That's a good nickname.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Big Greasy Josh McDonald.
Yeah.
So obviously, let's get right into the Batman stuff. And before we get into the reviews, last week we got the finale of Batman Fear State in Batman.
Yeah,
as well as Nightwing, which there was a little confusion on. They basically had an ending scene with Simon Saint in one comic that didn't match up with the ending in another comic, which was confusing enough. And then we get this week, and we get 2 comic books that have Fear State tie-in. So I'm like, I guess it must be the Fallout. And it turns out Detective Comics was taking place before, like at the very beginning of Fear State the whole time. We didn't know it. And then we found out what had happened with the Gardener and the other half of Poison Ivy that we already got the finale of. We're reading stories that have already completed here. I find this completely frustrating. And what a clusterfuck. This is even worse than we thought.
Oh, dude, it's so bad. It's so bad. Like, you know, we've spent this entire run of this, we've been saying, like, when is this taking place? What's going on? And I'm somewhat happy that they tried to place certain things in a timeline. It doesn't make sense. We can get into that in a second. But overall, it's still a mess. Like, it's stupid that you ended a story and then you're like, oh, by the way, here's 2 other portions of it that took place before this, and in some instances, way before this. But it was just a mess, man. This whole thing was not planned out well. It reminded me, there was like a 4-issue crossover in the New 52 between Batman and Superman and the World's Finest title, where you had Batman and Superman and Power Girl and Huntress, and they had a crossover. So for that story, they released the issues as issue 1, issue 2, issue 4, issue 3.
How do you do that?
Yeah, it's stupid. Like, someone has lost their marbles at DC, maybe multiple people.
Well, we know that the editorial staff has been slashed, but eventually you have to get used to the new team, the new work tempo, and the new amount of work that you have to do. You can't screw up an event like this poorly and expect people to keep coming back for more. And you're talking directly about, there's a note in Detective Comics that says this takes place at the exact same time as Batman 113. Yeah. I said, whoa, I didn't just read Batman 113. When is this happening? That comic book released on September 22nd, 2 months ago.
2 months ago. And we've had double ship recently too. So, you know, there's a lot of story that took place in there. And then my whole thing is, like, if you go, I'd have to go back and reread it, and I'm not going to do it because I'm trying to forget this time of my life right now. But if you go back and reread it, I guarantee you there are things that are happening in Detective Comics that haven't happened in Batman yet. And it's not going to make sense at all.
I think they saw the criticism and tried to find a landing spot for this story that would make sense, sort of. But I guarantee you it doesn't.
Oh, no, not at all. Just in general, we already found things that didn't make sense. Like, you know, between Anti-Oracle to see, like, just nothing was consistent. It looked like they had an idea that was half baked and started running with it. And this is the result. Like, you just get a big pile of poop.
Yeah. So that was very frustrating for me, but this is a much better week as far as Batman comics.
Yeah,
there are no
agreed.
stinkers in here unless you
No.
think Batman
Well-
Reptilian's a stinker, and I would disagree with you. We'll get to
man.
that, but
I'm gonna struggle getting through that conversation because I'm gonna be like laugh hacking through the whole thing. All right, carry on.
But there's one I think that stands out above the rest, and then there's a few strong comic books. We'll start out with Detective Comics. Rico Tamaki, Dan Moore on art. Looks like $1 million. When it takes place, like who knows? Why even tie this book into it? They should have just kept going with the Parasite story as is anyway.
Yep.
We've certainly seen that happen within events in the past, and I think the book would have been stronger for it. And then the characterization, as far as the relationship between Bruce and Nakano at the end of it, how does that make sense for Fear State and what happens after that?
It doesn't. I think if anything, it makes sense for what Tamaki's going to try to do in this Shadow of the Bat run that she does. But for Fear State, it doesn't. It completely goes against what was going on in Fear State. And yeah, I'm right there with you. I really wish they would have just let Detective be its own story, say it takes place before Fear State, let it kind of run its course, or maybe even there's so many other things you could have done other than like, let's try to tie it in. But there were some aspects of this issue where I kind of felt like even Tamaki may have been thrown off a little bit about where this takes place, quote unquote. And maybe she kind of got sideswiped, but yeah, it just doesn't add up. I like what they did. I don't mind it. I feel like you kind of need that Jim Gordon-esque type. We've got someone within the city that we're working with, but it just doesn't work together.
Yeah, I think in the end, a lot making Fear State in this big crossover event ended up doing nobody any favors, just as far as the continuity and the cohesion and stuff. But looks like $1 million. We got another ending for the Parasite story. Sounds like it's over.
Yeah.
What the weird thing is, there's some kind of there's some threads that have not been finished up as far as whoever infiltrated Nakano's office and stuff like this. But we're going to be jumping right into Shadows of the Bat, and I guess Batman leaving Gotham. Like, are we ever even going to get the finality to that? Because it should have taken place in Batman.
Yeah, my suspicion is no, we're not. I feel like I have no basis or fact for saying this, but I feel like DC and Tynion were moving a certain direction. Tynion got his deal and was going to step away, and then it quickly became just like, okay, let's just wrap this up and do something else then. Because the quote-unquote architect wasn't going to be there. That's what this feels like. But yeah, I don't suspect we'll get any of this resolution with was it Nero X1X and the King's people? We might see it pop up again, but I wouldn't hold my breath for it.
Yeah, and Hugh Vile and whoever was working for the mayor's office that they knew was infected.
Yeah, and I'm biased, but what the hell happened to Huntress? Like, she was there, and then her whole thing was like, I'm stopping this because she can see what the parasites are seeing, and then nothing.
Yeah. I'll recommend the comic book. It does look good. You know, it does conclude a story arc that Tamaki was doing. I don't think it fits into Fear State very well, but I think if you're reading Detective Comics and you read that story, and it's going to be a little bit confusing, but I think people would enjoy it for what it is. Not the greatest thing of all times, but certainly not anything worth avoiding or that you need to avoid, in my opinion, kind of like last week when we had some really bad comics. I would recommend that one, but it's a tepid recommend. This isn't me singing the praises of Detective Comics. Agreed.
I'd recommend it as well. I would just say, if you were hoping for a lot with this Vile and Parasite thing, you're going to feel shortchanged.
But obviously that book is moving on. Hopefully everything just moves on from Fear State. I think we've got another tie-in, a couple more tie-ins still to go, but whatever. Let's get into Robin. And I think Robin is the best example of not tying your book into Fear State and being successful. Yep. There has been nothing to stop the forward momentum of Robin under Williamson and Gleb Melnikov. There's another artist on here, which I think was a mistake because their styles didn't completely mesh up. But that's neither here nor there. It still looks like a good book. And this is, it felt like it was going to be the culmination. Obviously it's not. But we do get the final battle of the tournament, Connor Hawk versus Damian Wayne. And I have a couple of issues with the people watching the fights not taking it seriously and maybe it being a little bit too cartoony, considering the stakes involved and how much they've built this up. It feels like it should have been taken very seriously. I would have changed the tone on that. Otherwise, it's exciting. The fight lasts a little bit too long, but it certainly moves the story into the next chapter, which should be the finality of whatever's going to happen on Lazarus Island. And we're going to get the book that we want coming out of this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think the people watching the fight, the other contestants that were watching the fight, kind of made it a little too cartoony, and it didn't necessarily fit what had been going on prior or leading up to this. So that did pull me out a little bit. At the same time, this book has consistently had a rather fun tone to it. So it's not like it just completely, jumped the shark, but it was something that I didn't care for. The fight itself, it was fine. It was interesting. I wasn't crazy about it in the first few panels. And then as it really got going, I enjoyed it a lot, but I liked the idea of, Damian and Connor kind of, testing each other and sizing each other up and, thinking they were going to get a one up and then not. And it had a good story to it in terms of just the fight itself. And most of this issue is fighting. So I'm happy that there was a story to the fight itself.
So as far as the finale of the fight itself, I congratulate Williamson on not doing a shit finish where there's some cheating or they decided to talk it out or something like that. But obviously he had built in mechanism to where one of them could die, but not really die.
Yeah.
Which is essentially what happens. But there is a definitive winner. I will congratulate him on that. We know who the best fighter amongst these is. It's Connor Hawk. There's no doubt about it.
Agreed. Yeah, he won. It was a nice little moment. I think to praise Williamson, he did establish this as a rule in the very first issue. And I think part of me was just expecting Robin to win because it's Robin's book. So I was happy to see that, we didn't take that route, at least completely. So the ending kind of teases some interesting things.
Absolutely. And I will also give credit to Williamson. He's been teasing the chemistry between Flatline and Robin, and also Robin and a little bit Ravager, a little bit different there. And while there is some cartoony not taking this fight to the death seriously by some of the spectators, those two are absolutely taking it seriously, and it definitely builds up the tension and enhances your understanding of the relationship and that they absolutely do care for Damian and his well-being, and they do not want him to die. Absolutely.
Yeah. We've said this before, but if I could get a book with those four characters, I would be like one happy little guy. So
it looks, I don't know if we're getting a book with it. We're at least getting a story arc falling out of this with the book that we wanted with Ravager, Flatline, Damian Wayne, and Connor Hawk.
Absolutely. And I'm perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I highly recommend this. There's a couple of issues here and there, but it's fun. It's a big dramatic fight. Yes, it does take up about 8 pages of artwork. And we do get a really big cliffhanger at the end. Didn't know what was going to happen. We finally see what this island's all about. And we're starting to spill some of the secrets out as we come down to the end of it. It's DC Comics. It's modern. I think the pacing could be picked up and all that stuff. But as far as what's out there right now, this one stands out from the rest, and I would absolutely read it.
Absolutely. You mentioned there's a few issues here and there. You're going to find that in most books, but like you said, it's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying myself when I read it. I look forward to reading it, and it doesn't do anything egregious. So,
there's one line I wanted to mention too that I thought was really smart on Williamson's part. Damian says, "I came here to see if I'm the monster everyone thinks I am or I'm not."
Yeah.
And I like that. He finally explains why he's there. He's not just there to kill people. He knows what people say about him, and he wants to see if he's the hero or the monster. I like
Williamson has been pretty good about keeping the tone of this book rather lighthearted, and then just really inserting some just powerful lines here and there that kind of infuses just moments of character and depth. It's good writing and it's good work, and it looks like he's got a long-term plan. So I look forward to seeing exactly where he takes this.
Now let's get into Batman Reptilian number 6. This is the final of the book. Garth Ennis, Liam Sharp on art. I have not been very happy with the art the past 2 issues. I think he fixes that issue here. It looks brilliant. Finally, this looks like the first 2 issues when it was, whether you like the story or not, it looked great. This one looks really good. It's I'll give him that. This isn't Batman. Let's get that out of the way. Yeah. This is not Batman. He does not act like Batman. He's letting people get killed. He's taking great glee in things like that. He's taking great glee it's someone that helped him out, and he was trying to save the whole time, kind of being taken away to be experimented on. So if you don't think of it as a Batman book and you just think of it as a really weird sci-fi book, there is some enjoyment to be in here because it is so strange.
It's so strange. I would say this issue gets a little more normal. I mean,
This
you
is
don't
the
have
best
like
issue since issue number 2.
Agreed. It really kind of got back to the plot and the narrative and the story it was trying to tell. So momentum wise, it went somewhere. I would almost say a little too quickly. I wish we would have had a little bit more of a, I don't know how Batman would fight this creature, but I wish we had a little bit more of a struggle than what we got. But
we know how he would fight him. He would let him swallow him, and then he would drive up the Batmobile and explode it.
There you go. Which, by the way, didn't kill the creature. So I think we're open to if this sells well and does well, we could get Reptilian 2, which you might love, and then we'll have grandkids popping up that. Who knows? They'll present themselves. I have to say, I mentioned this book to the Batman News team, and Nick, one of our guys there, was like, honestly, like he's like, I'm opposing you. I know that Wes mentioned he liked it because it's so out there. He's like, I'm on Wes's boat. I think it's just crazy fun. So we were talking about it, and we had some people that hadn't been reading it. So I started discussing it, and then everyone was like, looks like I need to pick that up. I'm like, I'm the odd man out here. I'm apparently the loser that does not like this.
It's just so weird. It's
so
not Batman
absurd.
because there's a guy that's about to get murdered. He does nothing to save him.
No, he
very
doesn't.
Very out of character. There's a few other moments, but there's one piece of art in here. It's the best page of art that you're going to see in any comic this week. I haven't read all of them, but not even Ryan Otley is going to be able to top this in Hulk. When that dude ejects out of the Batmobile and his lips are like flapping in the wind, that was great.
You can tell. Oh yeah, no, you can tell Liam Sharp really took his time with this and focused again. I feel like the past few issues he rushed, but this he took his time with, and is back to being just a beautiful book, which helps it tremendously. For me,
like there's no dialogue, and there might be a little bit of narration on that page, but I stopped and I looked at it for a while. I was like, that is fantastic. It's hilarious. It's scary. It looks fun. I was like, how does he come up with this? It looks obviously it's a static image, but you could feel him flying through the air just the way that he illustrated it.
Absolutely. And there's a piece of this too. Like I want to go back and reread this. I know I want to go back and reread it almost as a parody, just to see how it reads then, because you talked about last time about how funny this is when you really think about it. And I think if I let myself get out of this isn't Batman mindset, I'll enjoy it a lot more.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite of The Imposter. You have to take The Imposter seriously because it is a serious story, and the groundwork, the way that the story is progressing is very serious, and that's a very serious take. You can't take this one serious
at all.
You will check out. You'll have to because it is so ludicrous. Yeah. Just on the information presented, some of the hypotheses that they come up with, and what this monster is doing, and it's.
I did laugh at the end when he kind of like stops Croc so Croc can be taken, and Croc's kind of complaining, and Batman goes, "Are you lactating?"
Okay. I thought he was talking to Alfred.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure he was talking to Croc.
I couldn't figure out because at first I was like, well, he's talking to Alfred because Alfred's on the page.
Oh God, I'm sorry.
And we don't see Croc again.
Yeah.
And then he goes, do you have milk? And he goes, why would you do you want me to go to the grocery store? Why would Croc say that? He's in a cage.
I think
so. I assume that.
Yeah, I think Batman was talking to Croc, and then Alfred was listening in and didn't I don't know. I need to reread it. I may have completely.
Because if it was Alfred, I was like, that is such a weird cliffhanger that Alfred might be pregnant or something.
Yeah. Oh God, can you imagine? Sheesh. No, I will say I do think we're set up for a follow-up story. The creature, the baby, the alien thing is still alive. The Croc's being taken in. And it teases like don't do anything suspicious with these creatures, like making them
don't do any experimenting.
Yeah, and make this a weapon of mass destruction or something. And they're like, oh, we wouldn't do that. We're the government.
Yeah, I'll say this: I don't want a sequel. This thing should just live and breathe at its own work of art that stands on its own, that never touches anything else in history, and just be something incredibly unique out there. That if you want to read one of the weirdest fucking Batman stories of all time, go check out Reptilian. At times the art is brilliant. At times it gets a little muddied, but you will never read anything like this, again in your life.
No, at all. At all.
You know what I mean?
At least not Batman.
Let it sit there and let people discover it and be like, what the hell is this? And be like, I can't believe I just read that.
Yeah,
okay.
For sure. Absolutely.
I recommend it because the art definitely picks up in this one. It is just so strange.
Yeah.
You're never going to read a book like this. Like, it's so out there.
I will reread it before I recommend it, but I will say that especially early on and then at the end, the art in this book, completely worth the price of the book alone. So I will recommend it for that, but let me get back to you on if I recommend this. It just depends on you and your taste. So
yeah, if you take Batman ultra seriously and you don't want the weirdest take ever on the character, this one is not for you.
Yeah, this almost is kind of like if you had a Mad TV, I'm aging myself, but a Mad TV parody of Batman and some of the stuff that happens, you might get this.
Perhaps. There's something to enjoy, I think, for everybody. It's just so strange.
Even I would say if you're going to read it, know that you're going to read it and that it's going to be weird, and try to read it with a group so you can talk about how weird it is. Because these last 2 issues I've enjoyed more knowing I'm going to come here and talk to you about it and be like, what in the fuck is going on? So
absolutely. It's one of those things you definitely want to get the word out. So the final issue this week is Catwoman. This is the penultimate issue of Ram V's run. Last week I said, as far as what it was, Nightwing was better than Batman, and I felt like the conclusion was more satisfying there. I think, in my opinion, as far as all the Fear State books that we've gotten, this one is the first one to really have a satisfying conclusion.
Yep.
I'm not happy that Blanco wasn't on art. I don't think this villain artist, if Blanco was back on art to finish this off, it would have been more enjoyable. Yeah. But as far as the story that was being told, what was, kind of incorporated in a fear state and all the moving parts, it's a good way to end the book, or
very much
in its portion of Fear State. Like, I'm impressed.
When I write reviews, I often comment on writers needing to work their stories. And what I mean by that is fully think about the story you're trying to tell, the purpose of your story, and if it's in an event, how it fits into the event. And that's something Ram V really, you can tell he just really tried to do here. It's clear he was mandated to tell the story. It's clear he had to find some way to just work something in. And he did his damnedest to take this world and these characters that he built and think about, okay, so we've got Gotham, we've got the Magistrate, they're taking over, everything's kind of oppressed, we're in this specific area, and I need to find a way to get this Ivy to the main Ivy. And that was his scope. So that's what he did, and he made things work. He tied stuff
while
back
explaining
in.
why Alleytown is important to the Magistrate.
Absolutely. Explaining why Alleytown is important, tying back to stuff that happened earlier in his run between Penguin and Riddler to try to tie those storylines up. He did a lot of work here and did a really good job of trying to make something that hasn't been successful somewhat successful. So this, I'm not going to say it's incredible, but it was good. And good is great when you're comparing it to a bunch of turds. And
it would have been much more satisfying reading this before Batman.
Absolutely.
Because there's a couple of twisted turns in here that are really ingenious, and it shows that Catwoman is a strategic thinker, and she was able to, out evil Enigma and Penguin in here. And
yep. Yeah, I mean, there's the whole suspense element to the story that had we read this before Batman, we would have been hooked even more, and it would have landed better. But unfortunately, DC and their scheduling, they made unsmart decisions, and that kind of ruined it for us. But yeah, in general, I'm really happy. I'm sad to see Ram V go. I think Catwoman's been one of the better books consistently with him on the title. And I'm also a little sad because we never fully wrapped up Father Valley.
And I don't personally want Tinny Howard to finish that up for anybody. Do you think that he'll be able to finish it up in this last issue? He obviously has one more with her leaving Alleytown. I imagine she's going to crown somebody as the new ruler of Alleytown.
Yeah,
probably Cheshire Cat or somebody like that.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be Cheshire. Yeah, we might get a wrap up. I think he's going to. I think he's aware enough of knowing that he needs to do something and try not to leave it in the hands of others. For Father Valley, yeah.
I will highly recommend this, but I don't recommend it as highly as Robin. I think Robin was a superior book. And like all those things I mentioned, by not being a part of Fear State, I really think that enhanced the enjoyment of the book.
Absolutely.
This showing up after Batman, even though it has key events leading to the finale of Batman, when Ivy and the Gardener show up with Harley Quinn,
Yep,
and all that stuff. Like, these are key events. It takes the importance away of the book. It takes the steam out of the story since you already know what's going to happen. But Ram V did a great job. He took
Absolutely.
lemons and made lemonade. He took chicken shit and made chicken salad. So I give him credit for that. We get one more issue, and I think he should be commended on his run.
absolutely.
He will be missed, and yeah, I think people will enjoy this.
Oh yeah, I think this post Future State era, as far as runs go, he's had the best run on a book, at least as far as Bat characters are concerned. So, I applaud him. I'm going to be sad that he's leaving the title, but I will enjoy what he did for what it's worth.
Yeah, the other Future State books that I think that have been solid the entire time would be Robin. Pretty much Flash, although I was quite hesitant on that one. Those are kind of the two of the ones that stand out for me that are actually in continuity and stuff like that.
Yep.
Everything else has been kind of hit or miss or just miss.
Agreed. Suicide Squad has been solid, but
we need to talk about Future State. You read the whole thing, right?
heck no, I did not.
Well, whatever. We can still talk about it next week.
Yeah, we can. I can do some brushing up. I read most of it. There were some stories that I read the first issue and I was like, nope, not touching it.
Because we have the hindsight of 2020 now. We're very far away removed. We can see the direction that DC Comics took afterwards, which I think it was an enormous mistake, and I think it allowed us to add context and perspective to what Future State was and why I think ultimately it's going to be kind of reviled.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
So I want to say thank you very much to Josh for joining me. This is a good week in Batman. There's no stinkeroonies in here. No. There's something to enjoy for all these books. Detective Comics, weird timing. I don't understand how that works, but it looks great. It wrapped up a key storyline. Robin was fantastic. We got a big battle. We got a really huge cliffhanger. As far as what was the next one? Oh my goodness, am I forgetting books already? We had Catwoman. That was the last one we looked about. That was probably the best end of Fear State so far. And Batman Reptilian. How could I forget that? It is so strange. It's so out there, but the art in this book specifically was brilliant.
Sure.
Sorry I made you laugh.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I fully expect if people don't roast me and my voice given out in the comments, I'm going to be highly disappointed. So please, please, please roast me.